JonathanKing18, and I've had a hit record. I'm still up at Cambridge. I'm writing a column in the Cambridge newspaper. That's in my second year there as an undergraduate, which we called King's Parade, which happens to be the name of one of the big streets in Cambridge. Good name for a column too. Loads of my friends up there went on to bigger and better things. Simon Hoggart, who is perhaps the best parliamentary correspondent and sketch writer in the Guardian newspaper in England. Norman Lamont, who was apparently up at Cambridge with me, although I can't remember him at all. When he became Chancellor of the Exchequer, I got a phone call from my friend Paul Medlicott, who said, "Oh, Norman's done well, he's Chancellor of the Exchequer." I said, "I've never met the man." And Paul said, "Yes, we had dinner with him several times at Cambridge." I couldn't remember any of it. And I had a lot of friends from the music industry who came up and visited me in Cambridge. One of my best friends at the time, I had a big crush on her, was the singer Sandie Shaw, who had a great voice, was a lovely girl, very, very bright, came from Dagenham in Essex. Her real name was Sandra Goodrich, and she'd not had much education, but she was incredibly bright. She's actually gone on to be one of the top psychiatrists in Britain. But she sang some great records. She always used to perform with no shoes on. And she came up and visited me in Cambridge, and we have somewhere I have a photograph of me punting down the River Cam with Sandie Shaw in the punt as I was putting the pole in and going all the way down. Of course, went down terribly well with all my friends at Cambridge, these glamorous people. I used to go out with Lulu for a while, and I remember one night we spent the entire evening up, and I drove her to the airport where she was off to Disneyland to perform, and she came back and gave me a Walt Disney watch that she'd bought, which I still have to this day, as Lou well knows because I saw her recently. Both Lulu and Sandie were managed by women. Sandie was managed by the wonderful Evie Taylor, and Lulu was managed by Marion Massey. Now, it was quite rare to have women managers in the business at that time. There were a few women in America, like Florence Greenberg and so on, who were terrific music industry people. But it didn't happen very often, and they didn't usually make great managers. But when they did, as in both those cases, they really fought for their artists, and they were almost more mothers than they were managers. I had a lot of time for both Evie Taylor and Marion Massey. Marion Massey, who produced A Small Child, as women tend to do, who is now one of the most successful people in the entire music industry. David Massey works for Sony Records in America, is the man behind such successes as Anastasia, Shakira, Hips Don't Lie, and is a dear friend of mine. A lot of other managers in the business, like Andrew Loog Oldham, were good friends of mine who I used to see all the time. He managed the Stones. Don Arden, who was really quite a strange character. I always liked Don, but he was quite dodgy. There was a rumour that he once held somebody out of a window 6 floors up because he couldn't get the deal he wanted. Well, he got it pretty quickly. Don had a little tiny daughter who was very sweet, who I became friends with, called Sharon, who subsequently became Sharon Osbourne. And when the recent strange events in my life took place, one of the nicest things was nobody knew when the trial was going to start because there was a contempt of court order. But the day it began, before I could leave the house, the most enormous baskets of fruit and flowers arrived from Ozzy and Sharon wishing me well. Very, very nice people, I have to say, some of the nicest people around. Other great managers of our time included Larry Parnes, who's behind all the sort of the boy band type acts, but they were all solo artists in the 60s. Billy Fury, Marty Wilde, all those kinds of stars were managed by Larry Parnes, who was, of course, gay. Many of the great managers of the time were gay. They knew what the little girls would fancy because they fancied them themselves. It was a very good clue. Alan Klein was the manager who took over the Stones. He was actually a lawyer who became a manager. I had to deal with him a lot in later years in Decca. I'll be telling you all that in a later episode. And I was also writing a lot of columns and being fairly controversial. I was cropping up on television, doing shows like Jukebox Jury all the time, slagging everyone off, writing a column in Disc and Music Echo, slagging everyone off, having great fun, winding people up left, right and centre, annoying and irritating every possible human being. And at the same time I was trying to combine my studies, going to lectures, taking exams, because of course I had my exams to do at Cambridge, and making all my numerous trips down to London. I'd get in my little car, zip down to London on a Friday, stay there Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, get up early on Monday morning, go back to Cambridge and become an undergraduate again. I can tell you it was quite a life, and very unusual and very bizarre, but the rest of my life was to become even more unusual and bizarre.